The galaxy was a vast expanse of stars, civilizations, and conflict, where power shifted like sand in the wind. The larger, more advanced empires, those that had existed for millennia, looked down on younger species like humanity, seeing them as primitive, dangerous, and easy to manipulate. They watched with calculated indifference as humans carved their place among the stars, scoffing at their brashness, their naivety. But there was something they didn't understand, something they couldn't comprehend. Humans weren't just another species in the galactic theater. Humans weren't like the others. At the heart of the Terran Confederation's fleet, a ship that had become a symbol of human resilience and defiance, the Valor, drifted through the nebula clouds. Its hull was battered, its systems strained from years of combat and the chaos of war, but its crew, humans of all walks of life, were unbroken. They had been through countless battles, had faced annihilation on more than one occasion, yet here they were, standing firm, resolute, and, most importantly, alive. Captain Isla Creed stood at the bridge, her sharp gaze trained on the holographic display that presented the outer rim of the galaxy. Her face was the picture of calm, but inside her, a storm raged. The decision to take the Valor into a sector known for its volatile presence of alien warlords had not been made lightly. It was a mission of necessity, a supply run to the nearby frontier colonies. But the galaxy had a way of throwing curveballs at those who didn't stay vigilant. And today, as the Valor cut through the deep black void, it encountered one of those curveballs. Captain, the voice of her first officer, Lieutenant Kian Darrow, cut through her thoughts. "We've got incoming ships on the scanners. Not a large fleet, but their signatures are unusual." Isla's heart rate spiked ever so slightly. She turned toward Darrow, who was studying the data intently. "Unusual how?" Darrow hesitated, then swiped through the incoming information. "The ships are from the Harnack Syndicate, a mercenary fleet with a reputation for ruthlessness. They're not typically hostile toward Terran ships, but this one is different. They've been flagged as a pirate crew, likely hunting for targets to pillage. The question is why they've singled us out. Our profile shows no threat, no weapons activated, no unusual movements." "Great," Isla muttered under her breath. The Harnack Syndicate were known throughout the galaxy as a dangerous mix of scavengers and mercenaries, hardly the most advanced of alien species, but ruthless in their methods. Piracy was their business, and they didn't discriminate between species. No doubt they had chosen the Valor because it was an easy target, a vulnerable supply ship, carrying precious resources. Darrow continued, his voice now tinged with unease. "Captain, they've locked onto our vessel. We're in range. If we don't move now, they'll open fire. Their intentions are clear." Isla's mind raced. Move? There was nowhere to run. Her ship, though tough, was no match for a mercenary fleet that had specialized in hunting down civilian ships. Fighting them would be risky, especially given the Valor's current condition. It wasn't equipped for a battle of this scale, not when it was designed for long-range patrols and diplomacy, not frontline combat. And yet, leaving her ship and crew vulnerable to a pirate attack was not an option. She would not abandon her crew. "Prepare the shields," Isla ordered, her voice steady, betraying none of the doubt that clawed at her thoughts. "Activate all weapon systems. I want all turrets powered up, targeting systems online. We'll give them a surprise they won't forget." "Captain, the ship's engines are still operating at less than 60%. If we engage them head-on, we'll be at a disadvantage," Darrow warned. Isla's gaze remained focused, calculating. She was a seasoned veteran, trained to think quickly under pressure, and her crew trusted her to make the hard calls. "Then we won't engage them head-on. Patch me through to all stations. Now." A moment later, Isla's voice echoed throughout the ship's intercom system. "This is the captain. We've got hostile ships on our tail, and we're not going to let them board us. I need every person on this ship to do their job, or we'll die today. We are Terrans, and we don't back down. Do you hear me?" The response came back quickly, an unbroken chorus of determined voices. "Aye, Captain." Her hand tightened on the command console. Darrow, I want you to take point in the control room. You'll coordinate the defense from there. I'll handle the tactics. All stations, we have one chance at this. We'll use the terrain, the nebula, and our ship's old war scars. We'll make them think they're fighting a much bigger force than they are. Darrow didn't hesitate. Understood, Captain. As the mercenary ships approached, Isla quickly made her move. The Valor, though not built for combat, had been modified over the years. Its old systems, meant for exploration and diplomacy, had been retrofitted with weapons meant for deterrence. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The ship lurched as the weapon systems powered up, and the first blast of energy struck the incoming pirate fleet. The enemy was not expecting such resistance. A salvo of shots struck the lead pirate ship with brutal force, sending debris spiraling into the void. The Valor shuddered under the return fire, but Isla's strategy was working. The pirates had assumed they were dealing with an unarmed civilian ship, but now they were forced to rethink their approach. The Valor darted through the nebula clouds, using the dense gas clouds to mask its movements, hiding from the pirates' long-range sensors. The pirates, unaccustomed to the environment, were forced to rely on their instincts. They had the advantage of firepower, but Isla had the advantage of terrain. The Valor moved with purpose, twisting and turning as it wove through the nebula's choked gases, creating perfect cover for evasive maneuvers. The pirate ships, unable to track the human vessel in the dense clouds, fired blindly. Their shots missed, barely grazing the Valor's shields. "Keep moving," Isla commanded, her fingers dancing over the control console as she fired back. "Don't give them a clean shot. Force them to stay in close range, where we can hit them hard." Her strategy worked. As the enemy ships neared the nebula's edge, they were forced into tighter formations, where their weapons were less effective. The human ship, nimble and quick despite its age, danced through the nebula, using its smaller profile to its advantage. The pirates were growing frustrated. They had expected an easy target, an undefended vessel with valuable cargo. Instead, they were faced with a captain who refused to die quietly, who used every ounce of her ship's resources to fight back. Isla's strategy was simple: hit them hard, hit them fast, and force them to make mistakes. And that's exactly what happened. The pirates, now desperate, began closing in on the Valor from all sides, hoping to catch it in their crossfire. But Isla had anticipated this move. She had already rerouted power to the engines, readying the ship for a deadly gambit. "Brace for impact!" Isla shouted as the Valor shot forward, its engines roaring to life. The ship's smaller turrets, hidden along its side and rear, opened fire in a flurry of rapid bursts. The pirate ships, now too close, were caught in the concentrated fire, and several of them exploded in blinding flashes of light. One pirate ship, the Stingrays, a heavily armored vessel, charged directly at the Valor, its guns blazing. It was a calculated move. The pirates intended to ram the human ship, knowing they could crush the weaker vessel with sheer mass. But Isla was ready. With a final burst from the Valor's rear thrusters, she dodged the incoming ship, sending it slamming into the tail of another pirate vessel. The explosion that followed rocked the entire sector. The Valor had not only survived the ambush, but had turned the tide of the battle. The remaining pirate ships, now badly damaged and confused, pulled back, their once assured superiority shattered. The human ship had fought back with everything it had, using the environment, its limited resources, and the ingenuity of its crew to drive back the pirates. The Valor emerged from the nebula, smoke trailing from its hull, battered but unbroken. The pirate fleet, having suffered significant losses, retreated, their confidence shattered by the unexpected ferocity of their prey. The Terran crew had stood firm, had fought back, and had earned the respect of their would-be captors in a way no one could have predicted. "Report, Lieutenant," Isla said, wiping the sweat from her brow, her voice steady. Darrow's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, the pirate fleet is retreating. We've taken significant damage, but we've got them on the run. The nebula provided the perfect cover our shields held, and we're still operational." Isla's lips curled into a faint smile, though it was tinged with exhaustion. Good. Keep our heading steady. Let's get out of here and report back to command. We've done more than just survive today. We've sent a message. A message that would echo across the stars for years to come. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The Valor limped through the remnants of the nebula, its hull scorched and pockmarked from the battle, but it was still alive, still functional. The pirate fleet had been forced to retreat, but that didn't mean the Valor was out of danger. The pirates, now thoroughly humiliated and having lost too much face in front of their own crew, would be back. They were mercenaries, and revenge was often more lucrative than plunder. Isla Creed knew this well, but for the moment, the Valor was safe. The ship's systems hummed softly, its damage starting to get patched by the repair crews. The crew had done their best, but it was a long road ahead. Many of the ship's systems would need weeks to fully restore, and that was assuming there were no more attacks on the horizon. But for now, Isla allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The crew had done the impossible. They had taken on a pirate fleet more than 3 times their size and come out victorious. Captain, Darrow's voice crackled through the comms again. We've got a distress signal from the outer rim. It's encrypted, but I've been able to pull the coordinates. Isla's brow furrowed as she sat back in her chair. Who's it from? Darrow's voice hesitated, his tone more cautious this time. It's a Terran transmission, Captain. But it's a call for help. The message is brief, they've come. They're here. The words hit Isla like a punch to the gut. A Terran distress call. That could mean only one thing, another attack, another predator lurking in the shadows, hoping to take advantage of humanity's most vulnerable. But this time, the stakes were different. This wasn't just some skirmish or rogue faction. This was something more, something far more dangerous. She stood up abruptly, every inch of her body suddenly charged with a new sense of urgency. Darrow, plot a course. Set course for the coordinates fast. The comms buzzed with a series of urgent reports from the crew as they worked feverishly to stabilize the ship's systems. Engineering was making strides in repairing the hull, but much of the damage was superficial. The Valor could still fight, and more importantly, it could still move. That's all they needed. A few moments later, Darrow's voice returned, this time much sharper. Course is set, Captain. We're a few hours out from the coordinates. But I'm picking up something else on long-range scans, multiple ships, not Terran. They're moving fast. It doesn't look like they're coming toward us, but... Isla cut him off. Is it a trap? Darrow's voice was tight with unease. It could be. But it's a trap we can't ignore. If we don't investigate this, we may lose more than just the supply lines. The tension in the air was palpable. Isla stood at the bridge's command console, watching the trajectory of their course. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her. Humanity was still on the back foot, still finding its place among the stars, but every battle they won, every pirate they repelled, was a message to the galaxy. Humanity wasn't to be trifled with. They weren't the same species that had been pushed to the edge of extinction by internal wars and rampant distrust. No. They had learned to adapt, to unite in the face of overwhelming odds. I'll take the risk, Isla said, her voice steady and resolute. If they're Terran, we can save them. If they're not, we'll fight. Darrow's voice was grim. Aye, Captain. As the ship hummed forward, the comms channel was filled with the soft sounds of the crew, busy working their stations. Isla could hear the urgency in their actions, the determination in their commands. The crew trusted her. They would follow her through hell if she asked them to, and she knew it. But there was no time for complacency. The pirates they had just defeated were a small fraction of the threats humanity faced in the vast expanse of space. Every enemy they fought, every victory they won, only opened the door to more powerful and dangerous adversaries. And this new signal, this distress call, could very well be a harbinger of what was to come. Hours passed, the ship slicing through space at maximum speed, until finally they came upon a small moon orbiting a dying star, just outside the edge of a nebula. The coordinates of the distress signal led them here, and it was clear now that the situation was dire. The moon was lifeless, no settlements, no signs of habitation, just desolation. The distress signal was faint but unmistakable. It came from the surface of the moon. "Bring us in," slowly, Isla commanded. She didn't need to look at the screens to know her crew was working fast to make the approach. The battle with the pirates had left them a bit battered, but they were fighters. They would push through. As the Valor descended through the sparse atmosphere of the moon, Isla couldn't shake the sense that something was off. There was no debris in the air, no signs of struggle. It felt too quiet. "Captain," Darrow's voice was strained now. "I'm picking up thermal signatures on the surface. Small, barely readable human signatures. But there's something else. Something big. I don't know what it is, but we need to land, now." Isla's mind raced. "Prepare for landing. Shield our descent. If anything jumps us, we'll need full power to fight." As the ship began its landing sequence, Isla stood, pacing the bridge, her mind swirling with possibilities. Who would send out a distress signal in such a barren place? And what could have been powerful enough to force them to do so? There were too many unknowns, too many variables in this situation that didn't make sense. The human race had been pushed to the brink before, and in the face of that kind of desperation, they had learned to survive. But this felt different. The Valor finally touched down on the cold, barren surface of the moon. The ship's engines whined briefly before the landing gear locked into place. Outside, the landscape was a graveyard of dust and rocks, with no signs of life, no structures, and no movement. A ghost world. "Captain, we're on the ground," Darrow reported. "We have a few hours of breathable air left in the atmosphere, and I've got a signal pinging from what appears to be a mining facility. Looks abandoned. But human." "Good," Isla said, already making her way to the exit hatch. "I'll take a team down. Prepare a boarding party. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't leave anyone behind." The crew worked with military precision. Isla, along with Darrow and a handful of the most experienced soldiers, donned their suits and made their way to the airlock. The pressure in the ship was released, and the cold of the outside world immediately hit them as they stepped onto the surface. The moon was eerily quiet, the air thin but breathable. Isla's boots crunched against the rocky terrain as they made their way toward the facility. The signal pinged louder the closer they got, but it was only a faint beacon. Whatever had sent the signal was still out there waiting. The mining facility came into view, a rusted hulk of metal and concrete. The structure looked as though it had been abandoned for years, maybe even decades. The team moved swiftly, checking every corner, every doorway for signs of life or death. They found nothing until they reached the central chamber, a massive hall where the signal's source originated. And there they were. Humans. The small group of survivors, no more than 20 or so, were huddled together in the center of the room. Their faces were gaunt, their bodies weak from months of starvation and isolation. But what caught Isla's attention wasn't their frailty, it was the fear in their eyes. Fear, yes, but also something else. A flicker of something she couldn't place. "Who did this to you?" Isla demanded, stepping forward. "What happened?" One of the survivors, a man with a bloodied face and a vacant stare, looked up at her. "We tried to fight," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "But they're not like anything we've ever seen. They came out of nowhere. And they knew us. They knew what we feared." Isla's heart sank. "Who are they?" The man's eyes widened, and for a moment, he seemed to lose himself in the past. "The Zirin Legion," he whispered. "They're hunters. They've been hunting us. They know how we think, how we fight, how we survive. They're coming for all of us." The name hit Isla like a physical blow. The Xiran Legion. A race of cybernetic hunters who had earned a reputation for wiping out entire civilizations with terrifying precision. They were merciless, calculating, and, worst of all, unstoppable. The last words of the survivor echoed in Islaw's mind. They know how we fight. How we survive. Islaw's fists clenched. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before. And now, the Xiran Legion was about to learn what every enemy before them had learned: humanity fought like no other. And it wasn't just about survival. It was about vengeance. Islaw turned to Darrow. Get the Valor ready for launch. We've got a war to fight. And she knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The Valor rumbled as the crew worked quickly to prepare for departure. The once sturdy hum of the ship's engines, now a bit more ragged after their previous encounter with the pirate fleet, was a constant reminder that they were on borrowed time. Every second mattered. Every moment spent on this barren moon could be their last. The Xiran Legion was known for one thing above all else: their relentless pursuit. When they set their sights on a species, there was no negotiation, no surrender, only annihilation. Captain Islaw Creed stood in the mining facility's central chamber, still processing the grim revelations from the survivors. The Xiran Legion hunters, mercenaries, biological and cybernetic amalgamations, were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. The mere fact that they knew how humans thought, how they fought, and, worst of all, how they survived it sent a chill down Islaw's spine. This was no ordinary threat. She turned to the survivors, their faces pale and exhausted, yet still burning with a flicker of hope at the sight of Terran forces. But Islaw knew that hope would only take them so far. They had no time to rest. The Xiran Legion was coming, and there was no telling how long they had before the hunters arrived. We need to move, Islaw ordered, her voice clear and commanding. Get everyone back to the Valor. We'll hold them off until we're clear. Lieutenant Kian Darrow's voice came over the comms, sharp and urgent. Captain, we've got a problem. Sensors are picking up something big on long-range scans. It's not just a handful of Xiran ships, it's an entire fleet. And they're not far. Islaw's heart skipped a beat. A fleet. The Xiran Legion didn't just hunt in small groups. They coordinated with surgical precision, and if what Darrow said was true, the Valor was about to face an overwhelming force. We'll have to get creative, Islaw muttered to herself, as the cold, hard reality of their situation set in. Darrow, lock down the Valor and prepare the crew. We'll need to move fast. Understood, Captain. The survivors, despite their exhaustion, sprang into action. Some still bore the bruises of months of torture or starvation, but there was a fire in their eyes now, a fire ignited by the knowledge that they weren't alone. Terrans didn't run, didn't retreat, not in the face of impossible odds. And the Xiran Legion, no matter how ruthless, would soon learn just how far humanity was willing to go to survive. As Islaw turned to leave the facility and make her way back to the Valor, her thoughts raced. The Xiran Legion strategy was efficient. They studied their prey, learned from their behavior, anticipated their weaknesses. And they knew humanity's most dangerous weapon, their unpredictability. The Xiran had no understanding of what it meant to fight for something more than just survival. They fought like machines, cold and calculating, but humans? Humans fought with everything, with love, with rage, with ingenuity, and when cornered, they fought with everything they had left. Islaw's gaze swept over the survivors, all of them shuffling towards the waiting shuttle to take them back to the Valor. Stay sharp, she called out to them. The real fight starts now. They loaded into the shuttle, the doors sealing behind them with a heavy hiss. The moon's surface was eerily quiet, the only sound the distant whine of the shuttle's engines as they lifted off, leaving the dust and debris behind. The crew and survivors sat in tense silence, knowing that the real danger was still ahead. Islaw's fingers drummed against the armrest as she monitored their descent back to the Valor. The countdown in her mind was already ticking. How much time before the Xiran fleet arrived? As the shuttle cleared the atmosphere, the Valor came into view, floating above the barren landscape like a sentinel of humanity's resilience. Despite its damage from the pirate attack, it was still the only thing standing between the Xiran Legion and the rest of humanity. It was time to fight. Captain, Darrow's voice came over the comms again. The fleet is here. They've dropped out of warp, and their ships are massive. It's not just one or two destroyers, it's a full-scale invasion force. But they haven't started moving toward us yet. They're holding position. Isla clenched her fists. They're toying with us. Darrow didn't respond at first, but Isla could hear the strain in his voice. What do we do now, Captain? The question hung in the air for a moment, and Isla felt the weight of her decision. The pirates had been an isolated threat, one that could be beaten back with a few well-placed shots. But this was different. The Xiran Legion didn't just attack, they studied their prey, dissected it, and then moved in for the kill. No one beat them. Except, Isla wasn't just anyone. She leaned forward, locking eyes with Darrow through the comm link. We show them what happens when they pick the wrong fight. Understood, Darrow replied. The Valor roared to life as the crew initiated the launch sequence. They were already on the move before the shuttle had even docked. The crew worked in synchronized chaos, every member knowing exactly what needed to be done. Power surged through the Valor, and the ship's hull hummed with life. The enemy fleet loomed on the horizon, their warships casting shadows over the barren moon as they took up their positions in orbit. Darrow's voice broke the tense silence. Captain, we've got incoming. The Xiran are launching smaller ships toward us, boarding parties, likely. They're not taking any chances. Prepare for close quarters, Isla said, a calm edge to her voice. We'll use everything we've got. No mercy. The Valor's engines roared as it shot away from the surface, speeding toward the incoming fleet. The Xiran ships were massive, sleek, and deadly, each one bristling with weapons and advanced technology. But Isla had no intention of giving them the chance to use it. All stations, listen up, Isla called out, her voice firm. This is going to be a long fight, but we'll give them hell. We'll use every advantage, every trick we've learned. The Valor might not be a warship, but it's got something none of them have, us. We're humans, and we don't give up. Not now, not ever. The crew roared in response, the sound of their unified voices echoing through the ship's intercom system. The Valor split the dark expanse of space, heading straight for the center of the Xiran fleet. The Xiran ships, massive and intimidating, began to fire as soon as they locked onto the Valor's signature. Energy bolts crackled through the void, each one a deadly arc of pure destruction. But Isla knew something the Xirans didn't. Humans didn't fight fair. Raise the shields, Isla ordered. We're going straight through them. With a sudden burst of speed, the Valor surged forward, slamming through the energy barrier the Xiran fleet had formed. The massive ships that had been poised to engage were caught off guard as the Valor slipped between them like a needle through cloth, her turrets blazing to life. Lock onto their weaker points, Isla ordered. Give them a taste of what happens when they pick a fight with us. The Valor fired relentlessly, each shot striking with pinpoint precision, striking the Xiran ships where they were weakest. The smaller boarding ships, previously deployed to storm the human vessel, were torn apart in seconds, their hulls buckling under the Valor's relentless fire. One of the Xiran ships, a towering war vessel, attempted to break away and reorient itself for a counterattack, but Isla had already anticipated this. She ordered the Valor to move swiftly, darting through the space between the massive enemy ships. The Xirans tried to track the human ship's movement, but the Valor was too fast, too erratic. In that moment, the crew's training kicked in. Their unpredictability, their ability to adapt, was their greatest weapon. Keep pushing forward, Isla barked, watching as the ship's massive weapon systems chewed through enemy shields. We're not stopping until they know who they're dealing with. The enemy ships were starting to panic. Their once coordinated attack was beginning to fall apart. The Xirans weren't prepared for a foe that fought like this. They had studied countless species, learned their strengths and weaknesses. But humanity? They hadn't learned a thing. A sudden explosion rocked the Valor, sending a jolt through the bridge. "Captain." Darrow's voice came through the comms. "We've lost portside thrusters. The damage is significant. We can't maintain our current trajectory." Isla's eyes narrowed, but she remained calm. "We'll compensate. Full reverse on starboard thrusters. Bring us about." "We'll need to get closer," Darrow warned. "The fleet's reconfiguring. They're preparing a final assault." Isla took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Then we'll give them one final surprise." "Ready when you are, Captain." With her orders, the Valor delved into the heart of the Ziran fleet, weaving between the massive ships and dodging their retaliatory fire. The Zirans had underestimated humanity. They had never considered the sheer unpredictability that humans were capable of in the heat of battle. And it would be their undoing. The crew of the Valor pushed through the chaos, knowing that this battle was not just for survival. It was for everything humanity stood for: resilience, determination, and the unbreakable will to fight for a future. And today, the Ziran Legion would learn, in no uncertain terms, that humanity didn't just survive, they won. Isla Creed smiled grimly as the final blow landed. The message had been sent. Humanity was here. And they were not to be underestimated.